Unmute the mic, speak up. The male perspective. Caregiving knows no boundaries. It's time to hear from the voices that often go unheard. Meet our global male caregiver speakers, sharing their powerful stories, experiences, and insights. Introducing our esteemed presenters, Dr. Wayne Freemanchon, Kevin Jordan, Dr. George M. Ackerman, Trevor Jeremiah Carter, Keith Demps, Basiliso, Bas Moreno, Lance Slatton, Mark Varkavisser, Michael Waters, Scott Wells. Connect, learn, be inspired. Together, we are stronger. Together, we make a difference. And now, meet our beautiful summit hosts, Cheryl D. Mims and Christina Keys. Reserve your ticket now and be part of this impactful event.
Christina, you're way too kind. I just want to tell Kevin how much I appreciated, what he shared with us. And it's true, and it's a theme that I think we have heard from a lot of the presenters today, and one that I share with people constantly, both through the podcast and with the families that we serve here in Michigan. And that is really, you're not alone, and I think that's vitally important, especially for male caregivers, because as men, a lot of us, kind of have a little thing called pride, and we don't like to ask for directions and we don't like to ask for help. We can always fix it ourselves. But when it comes to caregiving, I think that is one area we do have to just accept help and acknowledge that we need it and recognize that it's okay to ask for help, because you can't do this journey all on your own. And as I'm going to share with my story, it's something that I found out after the fact, but not during the journey. And that was when caring for my father, life's most profound journeys often begin with a simple phone call. And mine started at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. And I answered the phone, and then on the other end was, at the time, I didn't know it, but it was a home healthcare nurse. And she said, "Your father's had surgery, and we have some concerns that he's able to adequately care for the wound that he had suffered." And so in that moment, even though I didn't realize it at the time, I had just became a caregiver, a role I never auditioned for, never imagined, and completely felt unprepared to play. This is really a story of how caregiving shattered my assumptions, reshaped my priorities, changed my career trajectory, and taught me that love is less about grand gestures and more about just showing up day after unpredictable day. So at first, I operated on autopilot, hospital corridors, multiple surgeries, the red tape that we all face in the healthcare system, and a crash course in how to be a caregiver. I never Googled what do caregivers do, because that would be an endless search result. I just did what most sons, daughters, and spouses would do if they were in the same situation that I was in. And that's doing whatever is needed to make sure that our loved ones' needs are met. My dad, once my anchor, my fixer of flat tires and broken hearts, now needed me to fix his meals, take him to appointments, make sure he had all of his prescriptions, and anything else that comes with all of our day-to-day lives. Now, in full transparency, the role reversal was vertigo-inducing. I started to resent the loss of my independence. I was a newlywed pursuing medical school in my early 20s, and the flexibility of being able to go to a movie or go to dinner or study or take exams with my wife or in class with my phone turned off, some of that feelings of guilt started to creep in. For example, one night as, I picked up his dinner, he had whispered, "I'm sorry." That's when I realized, this wasn't just my life that had been upended. I had to start acknowledging and recognizing his head as well. His grief actually mirrored mine. We were both mourning the lives we thought we would have at that point. My father was in his mid 60s, newly minted retiree from a great job. He didn't imagine he would have to come live with his son and his new daughter-in-law and rely on me for everything. But in the cracks of our broken, normal light crept in. I discovered some resilience I didn't even know I had. When I couldn't lift him, I learned to advocate. When I couldn't fix, I learned to listen. We found our new rhythms, laughter during the times that I had to help bathe him, his crooked grin when I'd have to call him out for being stubborn. And for anyone that had parents in the Marine Corps back in the 60s, you realize it was a whole different world back then. Men were men, Marines were Marines, Army was Army. They didn't accept defeat. They always thought they would find a way through. And this was a situation that was very evolutionary for my father as well. Caregiving became less about doing for and more about being with. I stopped seeing him as a patient and remembered him as he was, a man who loved Sinatra, bad puns, and pancake breakfasts. Our relationship deepened in ways ordinary life never would have allowed us for. Here's the paradox, though, that no one tells you. Caregiving is exhausting, but it's also clarifying. It really strips away all the trivial stuff. You learn to find joy in the small victories, a full night's sleep, a coherent sentence, even a moment of recognition in your loved one's eyes. I became less of a medical student and more of a student about grace, both his and my own. On hard days, I'd recall his words, "You're doing better than you think." And slowly, I began to believe them. This journey taught me that strength isn't about stoicism. It's about showing up scared. That vulnerability is not a weakness, especially for male caregivers. It's not a weakness. It's the glue of human connection. And that love in its purest form is simply saying, I'm here, even when here is messy and hard. To anyone here navigating the unplanned, you're not alone. You can't plan for the unpredictable. You can't prepare for when you're going to be a caregiver because you don't know if the day will come or when it will come. The road isn't straight. It's very uneven, but you'll find reservoirs of courage that you didn't know existed. And in those quiet moments, maybe while helping to fold their laundry or waiting in the doctor's office, you'll discover a profound truth like I had. Caregiving isn't just about giving care. It's about receiving the unexpected grace of an altered heart. Our loved ones need us at their most when they're vulnerable, when they're sick, when they're going through illness, or when they're hardly the person we remember or recognize. They're still there on the inside. But in order to do what they need us to do and to show up every day for them, we have to practice that self-care like many of the other speakers have spoken about today, and remembering we're not alone. As you can see by this wonderful summit that Sherelle and Christina are hosting, there's many of us out there. Some we may never even meet or ever hear from because they don't know where to find us at. So all of us doing our part, raising awareness, talking about it, not being afraid, ashamed, or embarrassed only helps to support those other caregivers. And I'm going to be biased, especially the male caregivers. In my job as a senior case manager with our company, 9 out of 10 families that we meet with, we're meeting with the daughter, we're meeting with the wife. There's a rare occasion where we're meeting with the son, but that's because he's an only child. We have to give that support and that permission to male caregivers to first recognize they are a caregiver and that's okay, but to also recognize there's help out there and don't be afraid or embarrassed to ask for it. And to remember you're not alone and that you need to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your loved one. Thank you guys so much for having me speak today. If we can ever be of help here at All Home Care Matters, feel free to visit our website, allhomecarematters.com. Send me a connection request on LinkedIn. We have over 400 episodes with great resources, great information, or if you just have questions, any way we can help. That's why we do what we do. Thank you.
The Global Caregivers Network proudly presents the second annual Global Male Caregivers Summit, happening April 12th, 2025.